Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Judy Pelley, who is the Voter Service Chair of the League of Women Voters of Collier County. And Judy will introduce our speaker. And Judy, here's your microphone. Thank you.
Hello. As you've just been told, I'm Judy Pelley, Chairman of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of Collier County. Who are we? What is our purpose? We are a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in our government. We educate and advocate through public policy. We encourage and empower our citizens to take an active role in our government. Voting is one key means of doing just that. As I look out at our audience, I see the faces of our presidents, of our military, of our religious leaders, of our new citizens, and those who came from countries where freedoms were taken away. And I see you perhaps wondering if, with new restrictions, is it worth it to go out to vote? Is it worth the hassle? You aren't wondering what my answer is, are you? Your vote is your voice. This is how we control our future. We vote to honor history. We vote to have politicians who will listen to us and help meet our needs. We vote for change where needed. We vote for our children, our grandchildren, and their needs. We vote to honor the lives of those who fight so that we can vote. SB 90 did not take away our right to vote. Yes, in some instances, it made it harder for us, but we can manage that. We are resilient. We understand a few inconveniences. The League of Women Voters of Collier County has a website devoted to helping and educating. There's material on the tables, and if you look for the big red buttons, you will be able to identify members who can answer questions for you. SB 90 had, unfortunately, an inadvertent effect on the League and its relationship with the Supervisor of Elections office. We're suing the government, the state government. Unfortunately, the Supervisor of Elections office is part of that lawsuit. Boy, I miss them, and I hope that this will get resolved quickly and so that our contact does not need to be so limited. Please, voting is a responsibility and a privilege. We are so very fortunate to have Jennifer Edwards, who's our Supervisor of Elections. Jennifer's formerly from Kentucky. You'll know that immediately, that she's from the South, as you hear that Southern drawl. And maybe a giveaway might be the cowboy boots. She's been a Collier resident since 1984. Jennifer has been in leadership roles with accolades from her peers. She has been Collier's Supervisor of Elections since 2000. Her responsibilities include, okay, here goes, administering all elections in Collier County, providing information and statistics about voter registration, voting, and elections, issuing voter registration cards, conducting voter registration, vote-by-mail voting, qualifying candidates for office, receiving campaign finance reports, maintaining election equipment, hiring and training election workers, and renting and equipping polling places, and I'm sure that I have skipped a few. Enough from me. With no further ado, let's welcome Collier County Supervisor of Elections, Jennifer Edwards.
Thank you. My pleasure, Jennifer. Well, hello. It's good to be here. Thank you. I see some familiar faces from the League and from other meetings also. So I'm so glad you're interested in this topic. Yes, I have been your Supervisor of Elections since 2000. How many were here? All right. What was that election like? I wasn't in the office then. I was the HR director for Collier County government. And the Supervisor of Elections said, her name was Mary Morgan, some of you recognize that name, wonderful lady, and she said, you know what, I'm not going to conduct another general election. And I'd been interested in the position. And so she called me and she said, well, you need to apply to the governor's office to be appointed because I'm going to officially resign on June 30th, 2000. So I applied to the appointment office. I got the call in May that I had been selected to complete her term for 6 months. So I ran for the office. At the same time, we were conducting the 2000 election. So I never worked in the office. So I learned a lot during that process, the Bush v. Gore election, that even if you were up north, you remember it. I had people come to the office and say, my cousin called me and said, we don't know how to vote down here. And I said, well, I'm learning, you know. But it was interesting. But you know, the good thing about that is I've been part of the improvements. We have been improving Florida elections for 20 years. And we're still doing it, aren't we? You just the last few days saw the governor's press release and the changes that he's anticipating making in the next legislative session, which is going to begin in just a few months. So I am very honored to be your Supervisor of Elections. And when I tell people I've been doing this over 20 years, and so when you hear some of these allegations, please contact us. Email us, call us, and say, I heard this, is it true? And we'll be glad to answer your questions. We are a very transparent office. The ladies in the league are aware of that. They come visit us. We hold public meetings that are advertised during the election process. And you can be assured that your League of Women Voters are represented at all of those meetings, as well as the parties. They have representatives at those meetings. And folks, you're welcome to come. We're very transparent. We like to show you what we're doing because we are your election office. So, to begin this evening, we prepare booklets for the groups to which we speak. And we like coming out to speak, and we also are doing what are called transparency tours. So if you're interested as a group to come to our office, we'll give you a tour and we'll explain to you and demonstrate what we do. So does everybody have a booklet? Now I'm going to start grabbing my water here. I think I get the first pick and then, all right. This is nice. Thank you for the water. If you open this booklet, you'll see the first page is what? It's a map of our wonderful Collier County. And we have, as you all know, we have 5 county commission districts and 5 school board districts. When I came to office in 2000, they were different districts. School board had 5 that were different. Commissioners had 5 that were different. So I went to both the boards and I said, would you all be willing to share the same district boundaries? Because I think it's less confusing for our voters. And both boards agreed. And thank goodness they've agreed to do that again. Right now, as you all know, we're going through redistricting and reapportionment. So these boundaries are going to change next year. And we'll be notifying you if there's a change in your precinct. Because we use, in the elections office, we use the district boundaries to build our precinct boundaries. So there may be some changes, so don't be surprised. So I'm going to ask a few of you a question. And what usually happens in this situation is people don't make eye contact with me. And that's all right. I understand that. But I want you to think, who represents me where I live on the school board, and who represents me on the county commission? I live in District 1. Do you all know what district you live in? Well, we've got the districts here, and we've got the name of the school board and county commissioner that represent you. So if you don't learn anything tonight, look at this, take it home. I'm sorry the print's so little on the names, but know that, please. And the District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers down here, that's registered voters, not population. When they do the redistricting, they use total population based on the last census, because we have the law that says one person, one vote. So we need equal distribution of the population among districts. So Collier County government is going through the process, along with the school board, to draw new districts to make the 5 districts as equally populated as possible. And then state government, the state senate, is also going through that process, because they determine the new districts for state representatives, state senators, and Congress. Okay? If we move to the next page, you'll see the number, excuse me, the number of registered voters by party. We look at the number of registered voters at the beginning of each month and develop our statistics from that. So at the beginning of this month, we have 241,731 registered voters. When I took office in 2000, we had right around 100,000. So in 20 years, our voter population has grown, of course. So registered Republicans, highest number of party registrants in the county. 51% of our registered voters are registered Democrats. 24% are registered Republicans, and 24% are registered Democrats. And we have more registered people without party affiliation than we have Democrats now. That's a trend we're seeing in Florida and across the country. Younger voters are voting without any party affiliation. So that number is higher than registered Democrats in Collier County now. And then we have 3,648 voters that are registered in a minor party. Did you know we have minor parties in Florida? And those minor parties include the Constitutional Party of Florida, the Ecology Party of Florida, Green Party, Independent Party, Libertarian Party, Party for Socialism and Liberation, the People's Party, the Reform Party, and the Unity Party of Florida. And of those active registered voters, the Independent Party has 2,841. If you look at your voter information card, that tells you the party in which you're registered. And we encourage people that are new to our community to look at that closely. Because you know what we've learned? If a new voter moves here from another state and they go to driver's license, and there's a federal law that says every driver's license agency across the country must help you register to vote. And what happens sometimes is that new prospective voter will look at that clerk and say, I don't want to be a member of any party, I want to be an independent. They think they're not a member of a party, but in Florida we have an independent party. So sometimes that voter will actually be registered in the Independent Party of Florida instead of being what? In NPA, no party affiliation. So We work closely with the tax collectors, driver's license staff to explain that to them. But we do have people in the Libertarian Party, that's the next greatest minor party after Independent, and Green Party, and then a few down the line. But the Party for Socialism and Liberation has 7 members. So I don't know how some people know that we have the minor parties, but they do. So if we look across the page of your booklet, what do you see? You see registered voters by race. And of course, the highest number, 80% of our voters are white. And then we have Hispanic, and then we have black. And if you turn the page, ladies, women have the highest number of registrants in our county than men. And then we have a few who won't tell us what they are, so we say they're unspecified. It's not one of those required fields. And then registered voters by age, of course. We're a beautiful retirement community, so 41% of our registered voters are 66 and up, and then it goes down from there. So what's the profile of a voter in Collier County? White Republican women, 66 and over. So keep on voting, ladies. Keep on voting. Next, some pages on turnout. Primary elections have extremely low turnout. It costs you, the taxpayer, between $700,000 and $800,000 to conduct a countywide election. And it's pitiful when you see the turnout in a primary election. It is so sad. But we have to be prepared, and we do scale back some, given our history and experience on expenses, but we have to be prepared for a big turnout, regardless. But you'll see that the presidential preference primary, which is an election we hold every 4 years when there's a presidential election. In March, we have the presidential preference primary. And you can see the turnout numbers there. They're very low compared to registered voters. And then we always have a primary. Florida's a closed primary state. What's that mean? You can only vote in the party in which you are registered to vote. And believe me, we have some mean, mad people sometimes at the polling location. I had a gentleman once, he was just so angry. And I was visiting the early voting locations, and I walked in, and the clerk, who's the manager of the polling location, she said, "Oh, thank God you're here." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "This man is so mad." And I walked over, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I've been working for 3 months for so-and-so, and they won't let me vote for him." And I said, "Well, let's find out what's happening." And I talked to the clerk, and she said, "He's not registered in the same party. He can't vote for that candidate." And I explained it to him, but you know what he did? He took his ballot, and he ripped it up, and he threw it at me. And I said, "Okay, have a good day. You can still vote, though. You can vote for candidates in the party in which you're registered." No, he was too angry to do that. So keep that in mind when you're talking to relatives or new neighbors that move in. Florida's a closed primary state. Now, some of you may remember that 2 years ago or a year ago, there was an amendment on the ballot to change that, but it didn't get enough votes to make a change in the state. And then in August, we have our primary elections. You know, I'm from Kentucky, and our primary election was in May. But down here, it's in August. And when I first took office, it was right around Labor Day, right after Labor Day, I think. And that was difficult because people were thinking about having fun and going out with the family. They weren't thinking about voting, so we were able to lobby and get it made a little bit earlier. But that shows you the turnout. And look at those, it's 30-some%. We're lucky if we get a 49 was in 2016 primary, but that's low turnout. Now turn the page, and I'm gonna toot your horn here, because in general elections, in presidential general elections, in 2016 and 2020, Collier County led the state. Last year, 90% of our registered voters voted. We led the state. How many counties are in the state of Florida? 67. You're a smart group. You even made eye contact with me. I like that. But we're very proud of the turnout. And what I like to brag about is in the elections office and with the help of groups like the League, we get everybody registered, but we look to the candidates and to the parties to get people out to vote. And they work hard at that. So we're proud of our turnout. And in this last general election, you know, we have 3 ways to vote. You can vote early, you can vote by mail, or you can go vote on election day. And we still have people that insist on going to their polling location on election day because they want to see their poll workers, because usually we have the same ones at a lot of our places. But what do you think the highest number of voters voted in 2020? They voted by mail, didn't they? Yeah. Why was that? Pandemic, COVID, right? That was challenging for us because closer to the election, the PPP, the more concern. And we had polling locations tell us we couldn't use them, and we had to scramble and find new locations. And we had a large number of election workers that said, no, I'm scared, I'm not gonna work this. And we totally understood that. And we also scrambled and got help from the state and federal government to find the PPE. That was a new term we hadn't used before, but to get the personal protection equipment. And we were able to then have that at all the polling locations, and we also put the shields up between the voter and the election workers, like they had, still have at Publix and Walgreens and everywhere. So we use that kind of protection too. We are so proud of our election workers. How many election workers do we have in the room? Thank you. How many of you worked elections in another state? A few of you. You know it's not easy. It's a long day. Training's required. And we so value our election workers. And we constantly look at how we can make it easier for our election workers. You know, back in the day, everything was just dropped off at the polling location, and our election workers had to set up the equipment, they had to do everything. And so over time, we've been able to change that. We have a moving company, picks everything up, takes it out to the polling locations. Right now, we have 60 on election day. We enter into contracts with those facilities. We're doing that right now. A year before the elections, we begin entering into contracts with the polling locations. And we get everything organized and structured so those the moving company individuals, those strong individuals, both men and women that work for the moving company, move everything in and sets it up. We have a diagram of every polling location and where every piece of equipment needs to be placed by the moving company. So everything is as organized and precise as possible. So you can see on this page that of our 90% that turned out, 49% voted by mail ballot. We mailed 123,860 ballots and we got 102,993 of those back. And then we had the early voting locations, next highest, and then the lowest number on election day that voted, because some people still like to vote on election day. And we usually tell our election workers, you may be a little bored on election day because there's not going to be a lot of people left to vote, but we're there and we're prepared and we're ready to help our voters vote. Next pages, you'll see the primary election date in August. You know we have an election this year? Where? No, that's next year. Everglades City. November 23rd, odd-numbered year, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we always conduct the election at Everglades City. So that one's coming up. We got a little over 50 mail ballot requests for that election. And our vote by mail department staff are like, man, they're working us hard this year. You know, we're really busy. So they are voting by mail. So we've got the Everglades coming up, and you're right, we've got an election in Naples. The date of that? February 1st, right. So we will, Kevin, our training director, and I were talking about that training today. We have another county, and we do this with other counties, and they with us. We visit each other during an election to learn and just observe and see if we can, borrow good ideas. So we've got another county coming to visit us when we do our training for our election workers for the city of Naples. There are 7 precincts and polling locations, 7 polling locations within the boundaries of the city of Naples. So these are our primary election date, general election date next year. Do you know, I was listening to the news today and somebody said, just a year from now is election day. It's true. Just a year from now. 3 methods of voting: vote by mail, vote early, or vote on election day. In the next pages, I have the offices that are up for election. You all know the governor's race and all of the state offices are up. The lieutenant governor, of course, runs with the governor, attorney general, financial officer, commissioner of agriculture. Do y'all know who all those people are? Yeah, you're a smart group. We have judges up. We had someone come in today. We file in our office in Collier County. We assist candidates that are running for office in Collier County. And if you go to our website, colliervotes.gov, you will see those names of people that have filed. I have never in 20 years seen so many candidates file so early. We have a long list of candidates. And we had someone come in today and file to run for county judge. So it's ongoing. We have several running for school board as well as county commissioner. And this tells you which seats are up. So perhaps your county commissioner is up this time, or your school board member. And then we have some information on security here. That concludes my comments from this booklet. I received a number of questions from, I think you were from Jennifer, right? Yeah. That you all have shared that you'd like to hear answers to. So I asked Jennifer how she wanted to handle that, and she said she thought y'all just wanted to ask me questions. So I can either go through this list of questions, or you all can just raise your hand or come forward and ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Feel free to follow me, but what I'd like to do is ask the very first question. And I really want to applaud Jennifer. I've known her for a number of years, and the work that the supervisor and her office does is just remarkable.
Thank you.
We were all so very, very proud of the election in 2020. We thought we were terrific, and it was handled so well, and everyone had access, safe access, to be able to vote with the drop boxes, with the mail ballots, early voting, whatever. I remember I drove mine down to your office and put it in the drop box outside the office. In years past, I've actually handed it over the counter. I said, now I know they got it, and it wasn't stuck in the USPS, which, by the way, we had a lot of negative fear about. We weren't sure the mail would get to you in time. Now we hear that there's going to be less access, and I'd like you to be able to tell us what we're losing in terms of access to voting.
Well, the drop box is what comes to mind, right? Yeah. That's the change. In the past, I'm telling on myself here, but in the past, and I'm concerned about our election workers. Talked about that already. And we would hear that in such and such county, people get to drop their mail ballots off at the polling location. Why don't you do that? And I always said no, because our election workers have enough to do. Why do we want to put that on them also, having to keep up with these mail ballots that are dropped off? But then, lo and behold, in, I think it was 2016 or 17 legislative session, the legislature mandated drop boxes at early voting locations. I said, okay, because whatever is changed in the law, we do. We take an oath. I take an oath in my staff every year to obey the U.S. and the Florida Constitution and the rules and laws of Florida. So when the legislature makes changes, we implement them. And we implemented drop boxes at early voting locations. And we paid about $1,500, your tax dollars, to buy these very sturdy metal boxes that only allow one envelope at a time to be inserted. The one at our main office on Enterprise, anybody been over there? Well, I know the league has, yeah. Good. We're very proud of that facility. But we literally had the county's facility management anchor this box. It's about almost as tall as I am, and I know I'm not very tall, but it's about up to here. We had them anchor that in the ground outside the front door of our office. We had the county install cameras on it that's monitored 24/7, so folks could come to our office and drop their ballot in 24/7. I had a county commissioner call me on a Saturday morning after we had just mailed the ballots, and she said, y'all know who it is now. She said, Jennifer, I already voted. I want to drop it off. Are you all open this morning? And I said, no, ma'am, we are not, but we've got our drop box. She got in her car and she drove over to our office and dropped her ballot in. We have county security driving through that parking lot also, but they constantly monitor the cameras that are on that box. We had early voting, at every early voting location, we had a drop box, and it was inside the room during the primary. But during the general election, the League of Women Voters helped us, and we literally set up a tent outside 4 of our early voting locations, and they manned those. They rolled the big box out every morning and rolled it back in, and then went through a process of removing the ballots every day. So you could literally have drop-off. You could hand it to the members of the League of Women Voters, and they would show you they were dropping it in the box. People like that drive-through. In Collier County, the drop boxes were well received, and really people liked them, and especially like being able to drive through and drop them off. But then in the legislative session this year, there was a huge discussion about drop boxes. And then in the governor's comments last week, we learned he doesn't like drop boxes, so we don't know what's going to happen in the legislative session. We have some real pretty drop boxes, but I don't know if we're going to be able to use them or not. We know that right now, SB 90, which is the bill that was passed in the last session, it says that they must be manned. So that means we will not, even if they don't make any changes, the one change we're going to make is we have to have that box that's outside the front door of our office, we have to have that removed and brought inside. It will be inside our office, and it has to be manned. That means our staff will be watching it. One of the things that the governor's concerned about is that process where people take stacks of ballots. I've never seen this in our county, but stacks of ballots and drop them in that drop box. They changed the law. It says you can only bring your ballots, your immediate family ballots, and 2 others and drop them off at our office or in a drop box if we still have them. So that was another change in the law. So that's the drop box. And the other thing that we've already implemented that is a safeguard is that when you request a mail ballot, we began this, it was effective July 1. When you request a mail ballot, you have to give us ID. And in the past, we didn't ask you for ID when you requested, but we will going forward. So that means your DL, your last 4 of your social. You will have to give that to us when you request a mail ballot. And another change
Could I just comment about that? I just did it online, and I had already requested it when we could do it for 2 years, but I checked and I did it online, and I could put my driver's license number in online. I didn't have to bring it to the office to show you.
Right. Yeah, you can do that online. And another change that you just mentioned, Jennifer, is in the past, when you requested a mail ballot, it was good for 2 election cycles. Well, the law changed, it's only good for 1 cycle. So they did grandfather in the 2022 cycle if you requested a mail ballot prior to the 2020 election and said you wanted it for 2 years. That is grandfathered in the law, but just in case, I suggest you go to our website or give us a call. I've got the number and our website's on those booklets, and we've got some pens up here that have that information on it. But I suggest and recommend that you contact our office and just ask one of the ladies or gentlemen that answers the phone to confirm whether or not you have a ballot request in for mail ballot for the next election cycle. But that's another change that some people feel limits access to voting. Some people don't. My job is to implement Florida election laws and administrative rules and conduct fair and accurate elections, and that's what we do. So we don't get into the is this right or is this not right arguments. Okay, does that answer?
Oh, that question, yes.
Okay. Have a question?
Come up to the mic so we can stream your question.
How do you ensure that people are U.S. citizens before they become registered?
We don't. That is not something that we are legally able to do. There is an oath on the voter registration form, and it's an oath that anybody that registers to vote is taking when they fill out that form, either online or on paper. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says, I'm a citizen of the United States. I am a resident of the state of Florida. I have not been adjudicated mentally incapacitated, and I am not a felon. And if that voter doesn't meet all of that criteria and they sign it anyway, they've committed a felony. And if someone contacts our office and says, I really don't think so-and-so's a citizen, or they're not a resident, or they're voting in 2 places, we do what we can to mail them a mailer and tell them that their eligibility is being questioned, and could they please help us to determine their eligibility. But there is nothing in federal and state law that says we can ask for proof of citizenship. Okay, this gentleman's next.
Yeah, no, please use the mic because of the webinar. Thanks.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you? Thanks
I'm
for
good.
coming in.
Sure.
So I have a comment, which I may skew political, but it's leading to a logistical question. So the biggest threat, in my opinion, to the democracy of this country is the big lie. The big lie that the election was stolen by Biden from Trump. And so the question becomes, there are many, many states where attorneys general, I can think of Atlanta, Georgia, for an example, who have come out and said, no, we conducted a fair and free election. And yet the big lie perpetuates, recounts are demanded. And so my question for you is, you've been saying we run fair and free elections, and I'm sure that you do, but you're still subject to these kinds of accusations. So my question is, how do you, as Supervisor of Elections, respond to people who defy your claim of a free and fair election? How do you do that?
Well, it depends on where I am. No.
I don't understand.
Well, I will tell you that early on, I was offended. I've been doing this over 20 years. How dare you accuse me of committing election fraud?
Right.
And then
We're offended as well.
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. You should be, because I feel the same way. And what I generally talk about is the controls we have in place to secure the election. What we've done since, remember 2016 when Russia supposedly hacked us? What have we done since 2016? How many different federal and state agencies have been in my office and one group spent over a week going through everything we do to ensure the security of what we do, as well as these election workers know all of the numbered seals, the chain of custody, the reconciliation of even blank ballot paper that goes out for early voting, all the controls that we have in place. So I look at people and say, I'm doing the same job I've done for over 20 years. And the things that have been alleged cannot be proven.
That's correct.
They cannot. We have had 3 different meetings in our office with some local community people, and I will tell you, what I learned over about a month period was the mantra with some of these people is, but Mike Lindell said. Well, but there's no basis to what he's saying. And if you all watched any of that symposium, there were people there who were just brainiacs in election security. And they said, you haven't shown me any proof. We had people in our office. We had Mike Lindell call during one of the meetings that I invited people in if they wanted to talk to us about what we do. Mike Lindell called. One of his consultants showed us some of a PowerPoint presentation. My first question to that consultant was, are you on Mike Lindell's payroll? And he said, well, I get paid to travel across the country and give presentations about voter fraud. And I said, well, you didn't answer my question. And his response was, yes, ma'am, I get paid for travel and my mortgage gets paid. And I said, okay, good to know. They brought us in 2 sheets of copied paper. One was, they were claiming that in Collier County we had flipped some votes, and another one was a list of email addresses. It didn't prove anything. And I was outraged that they think that we could flip votes. There are too many controls in place. There's too many steps in the process. There's too much security. Do you know that the software that we use to create the election, and for a primary, there's over 300 different ballot styles. That's why it's important we know where you live. If you move, let us know. Go to driver's license and change your address. And during a general election, over 100 different ballot styles. All of that is created on this election software. And the tabulation occurs on that same software. And all of that software is in a single room in our office, and it is not connected to the internet. The election software is not connected to the internet. And the room in which the software is housed and the servers is in a very secure room. Only 7 of us, there are 24, I have 24 including me, and only 7 of us have access to that room. And oh, by the way, the league knows this, they've been there. That's where the mail ballots are tabulated, these high-speed tabulators. Y'all can come watch too. But there's a glass wall between that meeting room where they're sitting and that tabulation room, because Florida election law says y'all need to be able to watch us tabulate those ballots. So it's all transparent, and it's all protected, and it's all secure. Does that help?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm getting better about not being offended. If you'd seen me 2 months ago, I might have been jumping up and down, but oh, I am. And when I know the people that are saying that, it's even more offensive. Thank you.
As an election worker, I am curious how you're going to protect us from some of these anxious people that.
Well, for the most part, you all do that because in training, we talk to our election workers about customer service. We have the smartest and the friendliest election workers in the country. And you all do that with your smiles and your invitation to come in, let us help you vote. So you do a lot of that. But during training, we'll help you if you have specific questions about how do you deflect it. Kevin and Michael will do their best to help you. But did you have something in mind other than the PPE protection? And
No, it's more of the people who, what I understand with the new legislation going through is that they're going to allow people from the outside to come in and get real close to the machines and the ballots and stuff like that. That's my
okay,
understanding.
what that change is they changed the law to allow more observation of duplication of ballots, as well as the checking of signatures on vote-by-mail ballots. So that would occur in our office. It would not occur at the polling location. You would not be doing that at the polling location. We have poll watchers at polling locations. Every party, every candidate, and every committee, political committee, has the right to submit to us a list of election workers. We run elections, the election law is written on dates. So it may say 32 days before election day, the parties, the candidates, the committees must submit, the word shall is used, shall submit to the Supervisor of Elections the names of their poll watchers. And then we review those. They have to be a registered voter in our county. But we review them, and then we approve them. The law says on X day, the supervisor shall approve the poll watchers. And then we make a badge for them. And they have to give us a schedule when they're going to be out there. They'll still be there. And one of the questions to me from you all was, what do you think about them? And I think one of the choices was neutral. I'm neutral about poll watchers. You know, of course, I'm proud of what we do, and I know we do it right. And I don't know why people have to go out and watch us do it, but it's okay because we're transparent. You're welcome to go through that poll watcher process. And if you want to become a poll watcher, you talk to, we don't get the names. You go through your party, your candidate, or your committee for that. Okay? Yes, sir.
Do we have any online that we want to? I don't have any. Okay.
Ah,
Hey, Jennifer. I just want to applaud your office for going to the high schools and registering, I think anybody who wants to, that's 17 years or older.
16.
16 years?
16 and 17, pre-registrants.
Why don't you just tell us about that?
Okay, thank you. That became law a few years ago, maybe '08. But what it does is it allows us to pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds. And as you know, we close the books in Florida 29 days before Election Day. So if you're not registered before that 29th day, or midnight on the 29th day, you can't vote in the upcoming election. But what this does, if a student's birthday falls within that 29 days, they still get to vote. And what we do is we have a software that immediately brings up when their 18th birthday occurs, and we immediately mail them their voter information card. I was in a store the other day, and a lady came up to me and she said, I want to introduce myself, and I want to tell you that you mailed my son his voter information card on his 18th birthday, and he said that was the best gift he got. So it's a good thing. So we have a program we began in 2013, and it's a challenge between the high schools. So any public or private high school that wants to participate in our voter registration challenge contacts us. We reach out to all of them, but they'll get back to us. And we actually go in, we have a voter outreach person in our office who schedules, and he goes into each of those schools that want to participate, and he does a presentation, an education, and then he helps them register to vote, brings their voter registration forms back to our office, and those young people then are registered to vote, and on their birthday, they'll be official and they'll get their voter information card. A few years ago, we had someone who registered and they were not a citizen. Their family was going through the citizenship process, and it was bad. My heart hurt for them because I don't know if it's still the same way, but at that time, if you registered to vote and you're not a citizen yet, you can never, ever become a citizen. And we were able to get the congressman at the time involved in it, and they were able to correct that. But now we include in our voter information when we're out there, our outreach person, be sure and emphasize you have to be a citizen. And if you're not sure, take that voter information or voter application form home with you and talk to your parents before you fill it out. And everybody's welcome to do that. Thank you for bringing that up. We're real proud of that. We did, I think it was over 180 registrants at Gulf Coast Gulf Coast High School. They were the winner this year. And they've won in the past. So all the years that they've won, they have registered over 800 young voters for us. And I actually go to the school and I go to the classroom and I present a plaque. And we got up, I don't know if you all see our website, but we have a picture of me with these students on the day we presented the plaque. And they're proud. They're proud. I said, you know what? It's important to register, but what's even more important? Vote. And they shouted it too. They said, vote. So yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's great. We have a lot of questions about provisional ballots, and I actually, when I was working a poll worker for a presidential election, I remember that got to be a real issue when people had changed their address and they went to their dear old familiar polling location, and that's not where they could vote. And so can you tell us a little about, I'll list you some of the questions I have. First of all, how many provisional ballots are typically cast in an election? And just, a ballpark figure, and what are the reasons for requiring a voter to cast a provisional ballot?
Okay.
Then what determines the validity of the provisional ballots, and who does it? And how are these people chosen? Who are they? Are provisional ballots counted if they're going to make a difference in an election?
Well, right up front, I want to say that every eligible provisional ballot and every eligible vote-by-mail ballot is counted in the state of Florida. And we count mail ballots early. We can begin that days before the election. So when people are concerned, I've heard people say, well, in my state, we only counted mail ballots if it was a close election. Well, that's not the way it is in Florida. All the eligible mail ballots get counted. A provisional ballot is voted when the election worker at the polling location is unable to determine the eligibility of the voter. And we have a phone bank, and the workers out at the polling locations call the people on the phone bank and ask questions about everything. But if they have a voter and they can't determine their eligibility, they call the phone bank, and the phone bank staffers help them determine the eligibility. If we cannot determine the eligibility, that voter gets to vote a provisional ballot. It's the same ballot that you or I would vote, but instead of the voter walking over to the tabulator and inserting it, that ballot will be sealed in an envelope. It's not counted at the polling location. And the back of that envelope has an oath on it that the voter is required to read and sign, and the election worker helps them fill out the information, and the election worker is required to sign it also. And those provisional ballots come back to us. During early voting, they come back to us every night. And our staff reviews, researches, and makes a determination. On election day, those provisional ballots are brought back to our office election night. And on Wednesday morning after election day at 8 o'clock, we have 2 staff members, my chief deputy, Melissa Blazier, and our training and outreach director, Kevin Turner. It's their role and responsibility to begin first thing on Wednesday morning researching all of those provisional ballots. I actually brought some numbers with me. In a primary election, we may have around 50. In a presidential election, it's usually less than 600. And generally, I would say about half of those get counted. The biggest issue is people get all excited about voting and they come to vote and they're not registered. So we tell them, you're not registered to vote, and they say, yes, I am, and they stomp their foot. And we say, okay, well, let's vote this provisional ballot, and we'll look that up back at the office. So it's generally, they're not registered, or they voted at the wrong polling location. If you vote on election day in Florida, you have to vote at your precinct. And if you don't, then your ballot will not be counted. But of course, that doesn't matter if you vote early, because for early voting, we're required to have every ballot style at every early voting location. In the past, we've had 9 early voting locations. We're going to add 2 more to that going forward because our population's growing. So we're going to add 2 more early voting locations. There's a new government center being built up on Collier Boulevard and Immokalee Road. It's called Heritage Bay. So that's going to be a new early voting location. And we're also going to have one down at the South Regional Library. Y'all know where that is, back in Laley off 951. That will be an early voting location. So we'll have 11 early voting locations. And as we go through the change in the maps, we're probably going to add some additional precincts and polling locations for Election Day. Right now we have 60. But we're probably going to add to that because we're growing. And we want to do what we can to avoid lines. So, that help? Okay. Anybody else?
Any other questions? We said this would be an hour program, and we really appreciate Jennifer being here, willing to talk forever.
Well, I had 2 hours on my calendar.
You had 2 hours. Well, there may be private questions. We're not
Okay.
sure. But if anyone else has a question, I had given Jennifer a whole bunch of questions, and I think we, in general, covered most of them. And so I greatly appreciate it. Were you, nothing online? Our webinar audience is being, I don't know, quiet. Right. Thank you so much for coming, and I really appreciate your attention. This is such an important issue. I happen to be passionate about it myself.
So am I.
I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I've done poll working, and it is so critical. I really hope that we could encourage all our friends and neighbors to vote this year. So I want to especially thank Jennifer. You've been great.
Well, thank you all. Thanks so much. If you have a homeowners association or any group that you'd like for me or any of my staff to come out and speak with, we're glad to, because we like to get our good information out there when we've got all these allegations spread around that are not true. And I've gone to groups where I've had 2 people. That's all right. That's all right. Plus, we're doing these tours now, too. So you all are welcome to schedule a tour. And I would give maybe an hour is a good time. And we'll even show you our high-speed mail sorter that we use for our mail ballots. So come see us. Thank you.
I'd like to take you up on that, really. And I want to thank Judy and the League of Women Voters who came out today to help you with more information. And if you haven't registered to vote, they'll register you right here, right? Today.
Right.
She asked for our Wi-Fi address, and she can do that. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I want to thank, in particular, Brad and Jay, or Joshua, in the control room. We've got a really terrific tech team.
And I want to, if I may, I want to thank the League of Women Voters. They're there all the time, y'all. So thank you so much for all you do to support us.
And today has been recorded. It's available. It will be available in a couple of days on our website, the church website, and on our church channel, a YouTube channel. And we're more than happy to share that with anyone else who wants to see it later. But tell your friends. Jennifer will come and talk to you.
I will. Thank you. And I'm here for however long you need me if you have questions. Hi, Mom. Hi. Thank you.